Hey everyone, welcome to our next episode of Marketing to Agents. Um, and I have with me Lalit, as always. Hey Lalit, great to have you here.
Great to be here, Ashwani. Yeah, always a pleasure.
Fantastic. Lovely. So, Lalit, a lot of things happened in the market, in the whole agent space, in the industry over the last 5 to 7 days. So, today we have a full set of great updates that are coming and would love to hear your thoughts. Would love to discuss about what some of those things are and how are they impacting the industry as we are looking at. Okay. To start with, then, Lalit, the first key news piece that we came across, which you did cover a little bit in our previous episode, was that Google has launched an always on information agents in AI mode. So, what that would mean is that you can keep me updated mode on your prompts. So, the agents are running 24/7, they're scanning the news, social media, finance, shopping data, and they can keep updating you, synthesizing reports, synthesizing results, and keeping you updated on those agents, on those prompts. So, would love to hear your thoughts on it. How does that impact commerce? How does that impact B2B sales? How does that impact the whole marketing piece overall? So, would love to hear what your thoughts are around this new development.
Absolutely. I think this is the agentic evolution of a very famous feature that Google always had, that was Google News Alerts, right? And I do remember, back in the 2010s, Google News Alert was very important for us, where we would, just maybe whatever was our concern, for example, let's say
Yeah.
property in Bangalore or some region, right? You would basically set a Google News Alert, and whenever the Google crawler comes across new information or which matches or rather indexes for that search keyword, it would basically trigger an email alert, and not just for that one link, it could be a bunch of links also. And that was a fantastic way, in fact one of the best ways to keep one up to date about how, let's say, a certain domain or a certain topic is moving. Now,
Correct.
what we just witnessed Google release is the agentic evolution of that, and it can be much more evolved than just a set of keywords. You could be
Yeah.
very creative about what you want to know about, and for example, it could be something that any advancements in using AI agents to improve code based security, right? That is a very evolved prompt, right? And then the Google AI mode always on agent would then make the judgment of any new information that they come across, which sort of fits as an answer for this prompt, and it would alert you. And it could be on the app with a notification, it could also be with an email. You could also maybe set the frequency of, let's say, get a daily briefing, get a real-time briefing. So I think this is fantastic for especially the research that organizations do, uh, uh, because in our organization we have had a lot of interns who keep doing, let's say, competitive research. I think this is a great way to put that on autopilot. So this would
Yep.
really drive lot of efficiencies. The reaction time to information for organizations will be drastically shortened, right?
That's very true, Lalit. And I think one more thing which impacts with changing of this is that now, because the agents are running the prompts 24/7, anything which needs constant updating, it could be, like you said, it could be like in the erstwhile time, it was the alerts or any kind of a research. I think that really becomes super good. And information updating. So, for a brand, how do they use this is that, of course, it does not now, it becomes lesser important that, okay, how frequently you've updated your site, because the agents are checking all the time. So, and if there are prompts which are open, they will keep checking it. So if you're keeping your information updated or you're pushing updates, regular updates, if there are price changes which are happening on your site, I think getting those updates very quick and very relevant would be very, very crucial, because I think those will then get picked up in the prompt and get summarized in those relevant answers. So it's not like, that you're losing the opportunity. I think it provides more opportunities to, keep sending your updated content more often, changes, because then those can still reflect in better Google answers or better prompt answers.
Absolutely. And just imagine this from a shopper's point of view. let's say if someone is interested in a Dyson air purifier, right, and it's very pricey, so you want to basically buy it when the price is in a certain range, right? You could now
Right.
then just let Google know, and it would real time alert you whenever there is a price change. So I think the whole the intelligence layer, right, this is one of the most I would say the lowest common denominator, right? People keep searching for information, but in a way they want to be updated automatically, right? So this is like the widest surface area which Google has innovated on to bring in the agentic benefit.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Lalit. Yep. And then, so then to summarize, Lalit, what would you say is how would a brand, other than like regular updates, providing the right information, are there more things which you think brands can do to make this more, to make the most of this opportunity or this new paradigm of always on prompt searches, other than updating contents? Are there things that brands can do more?
I think, see, it opens up newer opportunities for brands to get discovered, because
Yep.
many people would rather set alerts for not just a specific category, but could also maybe start, let's say, they would be a lot more keen on, let's say, improving an aspect of their life. Let's take a B2C example. Let's say someone is on a weight loss journey, right, and they would want to basically look at latest advancements in weight loss using, let's say, ketogenic diet, or let's say, what are the implications of vegan diet on someone's vitals, right? So that is a very high level concern that people, I can very very well imagine, that this being such a important information category, that people would want to set a real time alert, and they might also specify that only get me trusted sources or verified sources, right? And so this is let's say a few steps above the actual category query where a brand would want to get visible in, right? So they're competing for a higher order, let's say, information query. And if so, marketers and brand owners, right, it is a dimension for them to invest in real good research, real fundamental information of let's say, extraction through research or through let's say, expert collaboration, and then publish it. So this would open up new, let's say, avenues for discovery and trust building.
Perfect. Agree, Lalit. Yep. Okay. Now let's move on to the next item. There's an interesting update that happened on the agentic stack, and I know we touched briefly upon it, and of course there was a lot of chatter about it a few months back. So this time, what we've heard is that Visa and Mastercard have built out or shipped out a full agentic payment stack. So what this would mean is that they made their systems or they're making their systems ready for accepting agents as a key persona or as a key user of internet. And if there are payment gateways or there are payment processes, that should be able to manage how agents can interact with those. So what again, this is a fundamentally new, fundamentally important step, because any commerce, any transactions, or anything which happens gets stopped at the end of a processing the payments or something else. And now we are seeing that, okay, now the stacks are also getting ready for accepting agents driven payments or agent driven usage of the payment processes. So first of all, like, any thoughts around that? And then I would dive into another thing that we had heard a few months back, and then just see if those things relate to this as well.
Yep, I think uh, some developments have been happening in the way people expect agents to make payment. But I think what we have seen recently with Visa and Mastercard, right? I think they have addressed the key risks. At least they've attempted to address the key risks around unauthorized payments or fraudulent payments, right? So I think they've touched upon the aspect of coming up with an agent directory or an agent identity, right? And also attaching score to those agents whenever they are, let's say, attempt to make a payment on the network, right? So agents with high trust score would basically be more successful in getting the payments through. So I think this was like the fundamental enabler, uh, and developments around anything related to trust in payments is like a fundamental enabler for the larger commerce to then get unleashed, right? So this is how I see this, and I would still wait out to see a few iterations for this, let's say stack and the protocol development. And my projection is that in another 6 to 9 months is when I think the agent commerce will be full fledged for common people to start experiencing it. You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah. So one of the reasons, one of the use cases which I was thinking is that, for example, let's say if there is an agent and I create a prompt that, hey, I want to buy sports shoes, and then I just want the agent to go ahead, not just do the research, but eventually even go ahead and do the transactions. Let's say they give me an option. I say, okay, this one I like, just go ahead and buy it for me. Now, for that to happen, for that full transaction to happen completely through the agents, I think and these could be like small retailers. It could be a small brand, D2C brand, which finally gets my sale. So my agent goes to their site and then actually tries to do a transaction and all of those things which are needed for the transaction to happen. So it's interesting that yes, the infrastructure required will be quite different, and the fact that websites might, of course, prioritize or at least try to build systems that can help this journey to be fulfilled could be very interesting to see, and could give brands another opportunity to be able to show something that they've done better.
Absolutely. So Ashwani, one of the things which actually happened very recently, like just a couple of days
Mm-hmm.
ago, and our brief does not cover that. That is uh, Agentic Resource Discovery (ARD). So ARD is basically a new standard which has been shared by the Google Cloud team, the team behind DeepMind as well, and there's a good set of, let's say, industry leaders who are listed as collaborators on that standard. What this does is, first of all, ARD stands for Agentic Resource Discovery, and what this enables is that agents can in real time discover new resources. So today, when someone is creating an agent, right, they are basically hard coding or predetermining what are the skills that it has access to, what are the resources it has access to, like MCP servers or tools. It is all baked in the let's say the construct of the agent at the development time, and when it runs, uh, the agent cannot make any real-time decision of including any new service or any new skill. So that has limitations for sure, right? As the world is evolving, especially on the long tail, right? Imagine, let's say, someone is trying to plan a trip, right? And the long tail would consist of, let's say, last mile activities that you can do at a destination, right? Now, a developer who is building this travel concierge agent may not have the information of, let's say, the last mile, but independently, just like Google Maps flourished in every nook and corner of the world, I think small, let's say, agent supported websites or agentic websites, uh, where an agent can interact with a service, will pop up organically. So the agent has to a travel concierge agent should be able to real time discover a service and then interact with it, and also include payments, right? That had to be enabled. So ARD actually opens the gate for that, and
Interesting.
it has got a very beautiful architecture which sort of resembles like a DNS discovery, right? So a website can host its own set of, let's say, capabilities, which they call as agent catalog, AI catalog, like all the services or all the APIs that a certain service has. Then there are registries. There could be like, so the discovery is federated through a set of registries. There could be official big registries. There could also be distributed registries, locally maintained by, let's say, some associations or independent people. And an agent running in, let's say, in US can discover last mile activities in, let's say, Philippines, in a small city in Philippines, through this ARD uh, protocol and standard. So that, I think, is the ultimate unlock, right? It includes uh, trust as well, because the agent catalog is published on a website. It is not some third party where the catalog is published, because third party could be hacked, they could be impersonators. So the trust of the domain, right? For example, let's say if there is a really good resort chain in Kerala, right? So their domain is the guarantor that the catalog which is hosted on their domain is curated by their team, right? So no fake information, no fake queries, right? And then local registries would make the discovery enabled to travel concierge of, let's say, people in the US who are searching for, let's say, last mile activities in Kerala. So this is fantastic. I'm extremely confident, and all of these are, as I said, right, they are enablers, right? So they're all like groundwork, foundational layer stuff that is happening in the world of AI, which would ultimately unleash high trust discovery and high trust transactions.
Fantastic use case example, Lalit. I think that uh, helps clear up the whole process very simply. So yeah, I think that's a lot of new things new use cases which will come up with all of this development now, and looking forward to some of that. Okay. Now let's moving forward to our next item, and I think next couple of items are very specific, good developments for AI search that we've been talking about. So the first I wanted to cover is there's some data coming out of HubSpot, which says that AI search is now number one predictor of CRM purchase intent. So even much higher than demos, sales demos which happen, or when a buyer goes and takes a demo of the product, or they attend any of the training sessions or meetings with the salespeople or product people of that product. More than that, there are research done on AI on LLMs is number one predictor of CRM purchase intent. So that means what we are saying, CRM is a core category. CRM is the we can say one of the most complicated categories as well, because there are so many bells and whistles to it that you have to decide for your organization. Other products are typically, one use case products, so which are much simpler. So that means what this means is that for B2B SaaS, AI search actually has displaced product demos instead as the top intent qualification mechanism, and getting the discovery budgets, getting more and more, ensuring that getting more qualification leads, but at the same time just justifying buyer intent. So this seems to be a massive shift in how buyers are now deciding on which SaaS softwares to procure. And I think this is of course seeing going across categories as well. But this is the first big data point which has come across for specifically B2B SaaS. Now, this having done this, it seems that it has many ramifications. Number one, of course, is on the marketing budgets. At the same time, on how now the sales pipelines are going to be built. At the same time, now what does the attribution models look like now? So I think there are ramifications across the full funnel of a sales journey, a marketing funnel. So yeah, very interesting development. Any thoughts around this, and what are your views on this? Yeah.
Yep. So, so Ashwini, I wouldn't be wrong if I say that B2B GTM was a very expensive human-led way to educate the prospect, right? So all of B2B GTM boiled down to just educating the prospects. And what we earlier had was a human-led way to to sort of engage in video calls, or let's say in-person calls, events, and then after the buyer is educated, they would then be let's say, then they would have the intent to buy, right? Now what AI search and AI agents have done is that they have basically uh, put the buyer education on autopilot for the prospect itself, right? The prospect themselves can basically spend as much time as they need on their search agent of their choice, right? And can get educated, and hence when they are appearing in a sales demo, or when they appear on the vendor website, generating a lead or a high intent, let's say, signal, that that buyer has then has sort of traversed the entire education journey on its own, on their own pace, right? They come at the door, or rather they enter the store fully aware, fully sure about that this is the right choice for them, right? And hence I think we are seeing the data also, which says that that these leads actually convert at 4 times, 4 times better. So this is no surprise to me, and you're absolutely right. I think the B2B marketing, the whole B2B marketing, which was essentially buyer education, masqueraded, in, let's say, flowery terms, it all has to be significantly driven through AI search and AI agents.
Absolutely right. And just to add to that, so off late, not off late, but with products, with a lot of SaaS also testing out the PLG funnel, where information on the website was used to then educate the users, and at the same time, there was enough and more video marketing which was done. What this also means is that going back to the core crux, which I think the whole inbound marketing started with, which is, you build a content foundation. I think that has become again important, especially with content which agents can understand. So getting all agents to understand your content. So for example, at Airmeet, we have about 150 or 1000 features in the product, but of course all of this maybe not explained. Everything is not explained on the website, everything is not provided on the website, because some of these things are questions which come, and then there are certain tricky use cases which come, which is when our product specialists go on a call and answer for the customers, and then customer says, oh yeah, this works now and we would like to buy a product. That means all of those tricky workflows have to be also provided to your agent. They have to also understand that, okay, yeah, this tricky workflow, if they have to run 10 events simultaneously with 1000 attendees each, with ticketing, with 100 other parameters, all of those scenarios have to be somehow answered, available somewhere, so that the systems can pick it up, so that system knows that, okay, these can be handled across. So I think if you're moving away from, or if the decision making process puts human at much later, like education through human much later in the process, I think a lot of content has been made available for these agents to really understand products and their use cases, each of those use cases.
Yeah, and I think that again, one recent thing that Google Cloud team and DeepMind team released, which is the Open Knowledge Framework, OKF, right? That OKF is again a very nice way to interlink all the concepts that a company deals with. Like for let's say for a company like Airmeet, right? I think ultimately all our features are conceptually linked to each other, right? They all represent a unique, let's say, a concept that someone should understand, and then there are related concepts clubbed together for everything to work together, right? So OKF is one of the industry, let's say, accepted ways to start publishing, right? So llm.txt was something that was never really like a published, let's say, accepted framework. It was just like a best practice, right?
Yep.
But I think OKF is being pushed as the way in which the company knowledge, marketing information, or any corpus of knowledge can be represented in the best way that agents can understand. So that is again, I would encourage our readers to, our viewers to basically go and explore OKF, and that again, sort of tells me that Google is punching like big punches on let's say the standards which are very much required for overall community and like ecosystem development.
Absolutely. Like, but then a question is that while Google is laying out these frameworks, but then would other LLMs or would other agents pick up on these? So, for example, if I use OKF and then I'm able to follow all of those guidelines, but then does ChatGPT still give me that importance? Or so Google must be trying to do it on both sides. So one is of course on the LLM side as well, and of course on the publisher side as well, right? That's how they would then build it as a standard, right? Protocol across the whole agentic commerce.
Yeah. So the genesis of OKF is basically it was innovated on, or rather it was sort of conceptualized to solve a problem for large enterprises, right? So large enterprises who have let's say a lot of documentation spread across different formats, and all of that knowledge has to be accessible for internal agentic work. And there is a very loose term called company brain or company knowledge graph that people have been using in the ecosystem, right? So there was no standard for that company information or company brain, right? And the challenge was that, a department uses, like, so department one is using, let's say, a different kind of a, let's say, technology stack, and their company brain is in different format. A subdivision two is using a different format, so the interoperability was always a problem, right? So Google started to solve the enterprise problem by publishing this new framework where the knowledge is interoperable, right? So, and portable rather. So imagine someone who is a tax consultant, right? He could basically create its own their own OKF for, let's say, taxation for freelancers who are operating out of Bali and who are US residents, right? US citizens. So that entire corpus of knowledge as can be structured in an OKF, and can then be sort of sold to, let's say, other agents who want to access that set of let's say, knowledge. So it is a one level above skills. Skills was again a very similar way to give let's say, expertise to agents, but OKF is a combination of skills and the context that the company has. It has procedural knowledge. It also has factual knowledge. When I say it has scope for that. It has scope for adding procedural knowledge. It also has scope for adding factual knowledge that constitutes the company corpus of knowledge internally, right? And that makes it complete for agents to work on. And the standard then ensures that this is portable across different, let's say, within the organization as well as across organizations. Now, your question around the acceptability of this across, let's say, other agentic AI labs or agent systems, I think Google has this very strong dimension of search and discovery, right? That is in their favor, right? So nobody can ignore that, and every organization would obviously be always compliant with Google way of discovery, and that would make the job of other agents who are looking for correct information in correct format, right? They would rather rely on something which is already out there, right? And Google is also doing it as an open framework, right? I think the AI Foundation, the Linux Foundation is already part of it, or I think the AI Foundation is part of it. I'm not able to recollect that, but they're doing it in the right way with bringing ecosystem players in it. And it is in the best interest of other AI agents also to start looking for this, right? This format, and because the information is best presented in this format, so the end user benefit is in just accepting this format.
Okay. Okay. Understood, Lalit. Yep. Interesting. Building now on top of this is, as agents are as buying intent is changing on one side, we saw another news come out this week, which was that Adobe has a great product for enterprise, which is Adobe Analytics, and they actually joined hands with SEMrush to provide enterprises with AI search data. So basically an AEO product, but then providing it for enterprises. So as we are seeing the importance of AI search growing, we are seeing companies either collaborating together or building products jointly to be able to address that need, especially for specific markets. So Adobe plays in the enterprise space, and that's what they have. They're trying to use that to be able to provide that data. So what we are seeing again with, of course, AirPulse's behavior, we are seeing a lot of mid-market firms reaching out now, for whom organic was a mainstay of their traffic. They were a known brand, and now with search moving to AI, a lot of these companies are now looking to actively monitor how their searches are happening or how their brands are getting represented in AI searches. So I think the need for constant monitoring and then leveraging that process to then grow their brand, or ensure that their brand stays on top of AI searches, in prompts, in consumer behavior. I think this would be a key marketing effort going forward. Again, something similar to what happened as organic traffic, or with Google search becoming a mainstay for a lot of brands. I think this would also become a key parameter, and also will be part of key brand building activities as well. So if I'm trying to build my brand, I have to cover, of course, I have to ensure that I do stay relevant and I do stay on top in AI searches as well.
Absolutely. I think visibility and optimization go hand in hand, right? Um, it is actually super important for organizations to now ensure that they are discoverable by AI and also recommended by AI, right? So as we have been discussing in this podcast, I think the one of the highest potency lever that a company has is their own website, their own content, right? So if they can be, let's say, highly descriptive about who their customer is and what is the unique value that they deliver to that customer, right? I think they will make the job of the AI engines a lot more easy, right? Uh, but they cannot be relying on, let's say, um, second hand or third hand information, right? So they have to take control of their own optimization and their own visibility, right? So I think what we are seeing with Adobe and SEMrush is again like a strong interest from enterprises to start optimizing their AI visibility. And I think specialized players like AirPulse.ai, I think we have an edge in terms of uh, we have our proprietary simulation engine which sort of simulates the ICP behavior, the persona, the prospect behavior in ways in which are going to be very important for you to monitor the right set of queries, right? Because when you are monitoring, and if that visibility number is giving you a satisfaction, right? So you have to first ensure that you are monitoring the right prompts, right? So specialized players will obviously end up doing a better job in terms of let's say covering the last mile or making it highly actionable than, let's say, old generation players who are still rooted in the SEO mindset.
Yep, let's well said. And yep, it will. It is becoming quite important. And again, just from some of the data that we are seeing at AirPulse, the demand is coming from across the board. Companies which are very, very new and want to establish a brand, they're also looking to start off. It gives them a new opportunity because for them to crack organic traffic, organic search took a long time. They had to build a lot of content. But this is absolutely now there's a new, so it's a newer companies have actually a great way segue to be able to, of course, rank higher or ensure that their brand shows up more often in AI searches. So yeah, I think it's a paradigm which all these companies are using, and just from companies like Adobe investing or partnering with key players in the market is a testament to the fact that even enterprise level, this is also becoming a key problem that they're monitoring and trying to solve for. Okay, perfect. I think one of the last comments or last topics for our discussion this week is that in general, we are seeing, of course, we are seeing basically more and more AI visibility platform specific and non-transferable information coming through. So for example, being cited in ChatGPT does not predict Gemini citations. So going deeper into this whole AI search, uh, we are, of course, as brands, we are all trying to understand how each of these engines are picking up our content or picking up our URLs and citing them or sending traffic our way. It seems like the logic for each one of these LLMs right now seems to be quite different. For example, in one of our earlier podcasts, we discussed ChatGPT anchors very heavily on social content or, let's say, authority from Reddit or things like that. Gemini, of course, brings in a lot of YouTube, for example. So, how does one, as a brand, as a publisher, how does one focus on this and how does one solve for this?
Yeah, I think the so we have to start looking at these AI agents as personalities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these, just like personalities are driven by their motivations, inherent motivations, I think these they are also driven by motivations of the business model, right? So a Claude or a ChatGPT in the avatars of their, let's say, a Codex or a Cowork, um, versus, let's say, a Gemini or a Google AI mode, they have very different motivations and very different business models, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I think they would they would then behave in different ways, right? So what we need to do as brands is to basically cast a wider net in terms of, let's say, our monitoring activity. And uh, the good thing is that it is not a zero something, right? Like you can be recommended by ChatGPT as well as Gemini, right? So they're not anti each other, right? They're in some sense complementary, right? Because ultimately one of the core motivation is to be at the service for the user, right? So if the brand is doing all the right things with respect to being more helpful in their marketing content for the prospect to get educated by their agent, right? I think the as long as that fundamental is taken care of, I think brands don't have to worry. But there will be some sources where your competition can be, let's say, acquiring an edge, right? Let's say for Gemini a certain pocket of sources matter more, a certain competition of yours is sort of having a lead on that space. So regular monitoring would give you action items which your team can basically do. So at AirPulse we have this. We have on a regular basis we monitor all the surface areas, and we have this data-driven way to give you the recommendation on, like, what kind of citations, what kind of publishers matter more for your domain, and week by week which competition is figuring, like sort of figuring out what position, right? And what did they do last week, or what new thing that they have done that have sort of given them the edge, right? So that your teams can sort of incorporate that in their set of activities. So this will be necessary. Fortunately or unfortunately, the era of AI search is deeply fragmented. The internet search era, which was, let's say, from 1995, or let's say early 2000s to, let's say, 2023, that was still dominated by one single player, Google. And the 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 task of the teams which are optimizing for discovery was fairly simple. Uh, in the era going forward, it will be fragmented, and we should be ready for newer and newer surface areas to emerge, right? As we last in one of our last discussions, we discussed about open source AI models, right, or open weight AI models, which are going to gain a lot more popularity because they will be underneath the, let's say, an application that you're using, right? Um, so I think the domain is going to be a lot more challenging, a lot more fragmented. For high confidence on discoverability, I think the teams have to, let's say, as I said, cast a wider net of optimization, and be very steadfast and rapid in terms of optimization activities.
Understood, Lalit. Actually, a follow up on that, and actually, you did allude to it, and I had this question before in my mind. The idea is that, do you think that at some point these there will not be so many LLMs, and it'll just, like, there will be specialized LLM for different tasks? So, for example, we have Claude Code, which does coding. We have Claude Design, which does design help, and then let's say Gemini for all our general queries, or ChatGPT specializing in certain type of queries, or there will be a Gemini deep research mode. There's already that mode. So, but do you think that this could also end up being like a two-horse race, where right now, of course, there are many players, but then eventually each of this becomes a big enough category, and there are just two dominant players in each of those categories. So coding, there is just two dominant players. General queries, there may be three dominant players, and then then there are specialized queries, and then there could also be very specific. So if there is, let's say, someone is in R&D, or they are into research on nanotechnologies or material sciences research, then there is a specialized LLM just for that, which is like, which does not then is much better than a generic one, or which is at least gives more, hallucinates much lesser, because it's specially customized and built for that. So do you think that could be in a future that we are looking at, and hence this problem that we are facing today, which is like optimizing for multiple engines, actually boils down to then eventually just, there are two players in the category in which you are servicing, and then eventually just optimize for those two? You think that could be a future that we could see maybe next 3 years or 5 years?
Yeah, so there is a fair possibility of that to be the future, the especially, let's say, consumer touch points are heavily concentrated in Google and Apple, right? Enterprise touch points are heavily enterprise. So enterprise touch points have been fragmented, but generally, I think if you look at the large enterprises like the Fortune 1000, right? So they've always had, let's say, a fingerprint of Microsoft or a Salesforce, right? So the whoever owns the highest number of, let's say, customer base, right, they have the opportunity to sort of consolidate the optimization uh, responsibility or headache in some sense. But I would say the future can also be highly fragmented, right? Especially uh, given the roles and, let's say, the diversity of activities that humans end up doing, right? So for knowledge work, there could be, let's say, a bunch of, let's say, a couple of players which are dominating. For artistic work, there could be a couple of players which are dominating. For, let's say, more heavy industrial work, there could be a couple of players which are dominating, right? Uh, one one for sure user behavior that I am very confident in is that the the AI agent that does my work is going to be the agent that also does my search, right? So it will it will not be it will not be two agents that I'm basically going to search separately and then for work separately, right? Because skeuomorphism at play, I think, will have a very high degree of reliance and connection with one agent that does a lot of our work, right? So imagine a teacher, right? If they are working with a specialized application or agent which helps them come up with a course plan, come up with assets, come up with, let's say, let's say evaluation, let's say questions, and it also helps evaluate the responses and also monitors their teaching as an activity, right? Now, for anything that the teacher should need, the agent is the best, place to discover that. So, if that behavior is very strong, like in future, if, let's say, if we see more strong uh, expression of that behavior, then I think the search will continue to be fragmented. And as as models, like, how do models specialize? They specialize with reinforcement learning, right? The whole post training thing that we talk about, right? And what essentially reinforcement learning is basically compressing years of experience into, let's say, the post training phase, right? With a lot of these journeys and like how some real task has been achieved, you map the entire journey, and then you sort of, let the agent uh, sort of in a way consume that or experience that, go through that. What took, let's say, a human 20 years, you just have to make that AI agent go through all of it in, let's say, like 3 months. So if you look at the variety of job roles that humans have today, right, uh, there is bound to be a variety of agents which specialize in those roles because there is economic value in that, right? And with with people who are so dependent on, let's say, their own agent for their own specific job role, they might also end up searching or relying on that very agent for discovery of new services, new things, right? So I do think there might be an impression of that in the future. But for some very high risk categories like health, right? Uh, I continue to believe that there might be some specialized agents, right? Specialized surface areas where you want for health, you want to go there, right? Or let's
Yep.
say, or there could be a channel through which the specialized AI is the health specialist AI is sort of getting distribution. For example,
Embedded. Mhm.
yeah, through hospitals, the hospital applications can have an interface where people are, engaging with the AI agent, and then that is powered by a specialized health agent because those domains will be highly regulated, and I think with regulation there is some bit of a defensibility and moat, right? So it would automatically sort of make it difficult for the the more flowers to bloom in that garden, so to say. Yeah.
Yep. That's true, Lalit. And yeah, you mentioned a great point about health. I think yeah, health would need something very very specialized. It could also be yeah, there anything which is a very which has enormous amount of data and it's quite sensitive information, and the use cases also. So another thing which again just off the top of my head could be some part in banking, could be something which is specialized, especially the risk assessment and things like those. But yeah, it's remains to be seen how this future unfolds. But interesting times. Well, with that, would like to end our discussion today, and great to have you here, and everyone. It was a great, good session. Thank you for listening through the whole thing, and yeah, please do let us know in your comments how this was, and if there is a specific topic question that you have, feel free to send it to us as well. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ash.
Bye.